Hi there. I've been using JavaScript quite a bit recently with Apache NetBeans. In particular in relation to Oracle Jet, which is Oracle's free and open source JavaScript front-end technology stack. And I want to share some tips that make life really nice and smooth and make NetBeans the ideal tool to use for JavaScript in general, but Oracle Jet in particular. The first is I'm going to set up NetBeans to work well with JavaScript and with Jet in particular before doing anything else. Before opening any projects, before creating any projects, I'm going to go to the Preferences dialog here, which if you're on Windows is under the Tools menu. You go to Tools and Options. I don't see options here. That's because on the Mac it's not Tools Options, it's NetBeans Preferences. And there's a very interesting tab right at the end called Miscellaneous. So by default you'll see the General tab. Go to Miscellaneous. In there you'll see this first of all, diff, but there's files in here. Now in there what I've done is I've included Node modules and web. So by default you'll see this. So these are the files and folders that are excluded from the views in NetBeans and also from the scanning and so on. So if this is enabled, I've disabled this, and I've also set in here node modules, and secondly web. Now, node modules for obvious reasons. So if you're doing JavaScript, you tend to have a node modules folder thanks to package.json. You don't need to see that in your development environment. And whatever NetBeans sees in the development environment, it tries to scan and understand. So let's exclude it. Secondly, I'm using Jet. So in Jet there is a folder called web, which is created after doing an OJet build or serve process, which also we don't need to work with at all. And it is populated by what is found in node modules when the OJet build or serve is done. So what is in the web folder is, among other things, a long list of JavaScript libraries that NetBeans will try to scan and understand and so on, which we also don't need NetBeans to do. So we've removed node modules and web, and we won't see them in the projects view, in the files view, in the favorites view. They are of course on disk, but they are not in NetBeans, and NetBeans will not try to work with them, which saves so much background processing and all these kinds of things. Secondly, NetBeans has a terminal window. So I'm going to go to that window. So our command prompt is right here inside NetBeans. So I'm going to browse up into my demos folder. And here I'm going to create my Jet application. Now you could ask, well, why doesn't NetBeans provide a template for me to do this? I don't think that it's needed, personally. This command line prompt is so simple and easy. Why would you need a template of some kind in NetBeans that does this for you? All it would do is it would generate this on the command prompt and then press enter for you on the command prompt. It seems like a lot of work for something that is so trivial. So personally, I don't see any value to a project template in NetBeans that does something as simple as this. So in a minute or two, as always, we will have our logistic planner, in this case, that's its name, generated for us. And then we're going to open it into NetBeans, and we're going to do some more optimization of NetBeans for this project. So I'm going to go into Open Project, and I go into my demos folder, and here it is, and I choose Logistic Planner, open it. Now first of all, I'm not going to see my Node Modules folder. We can ignore this. I won't see my Node Modules folder as planned, and I won't see my web folder when I do my build. So here's my OJet build. You need to do that inside of the directory, of course, where your Jet project is found. So now the build is done. I don't see a web folder. Normally I would see a web folder, but why do I need to see it? Why do I need to work with it? I don't, in fact, need to work with it. And so there's no point in showing it. Plus it confuses things, and I might accidentally work it there. Now I see here an error marking. So let's take a look at that. Let's just wait for this whole process to complete. Doesn't take very long. So there it is. Okay, so now I see an error marking. Now it's distracting again, and I do want to see my themes folder, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and I can actually tell NetBeans from where it should do its scanning, which you can only do once you actually have an error. So here we have an error mark. So I'm going to jump into that error. So NetBeans doesn't really understand this, which is fine. So we're going to say we're going to filter out from a particular place. So not filter out the parsing, so the CSS parsing from the project level, but from the themes folder. That's where we are with our CSS files. So I click on this and I close this, and I'll just select the top level project. Now you can see that the indices are being refreshed, which doesn't take very long. And once that's done, you'll see that all these error marks disappear, and which is distracting, having them there, and it's completely not needed. So now our project looks really nice and neat and tidy. We have removed all the superfluous things. We're going to speed up the working of NetBeans because it won't be needlessly scanning things. And so now we are ready to work with our code, with our project. Now, I've also been looking at TypeScript recently, and so whenever I see this, I don't need this, so I don't need Node to be added. And what is interesting about TypeScript, among other things, is that, well, first of all, NetBeans has great support for it if you install the TypeScript plugin. So here's another tip connected to NetBeans. You should definitely install the TypeScript plugin if you want to make use of TypeScript. So here is a typical TypeScript file. And you can see that when I open the code completion, that I can find now information that relates to a particular type. So you can see, but you can see that this takes up so much space, and it seems a bit needless. Look at that. Do we need it to be that long? This wide? So did you know? So here's a really nice little tip as well. If I go to the preference window, and I go to the editor, and I go to code completion, and I go into JavaScript, so this applies to TypeScript too, I can set the character width of the completion item signature. So let's say I make this 10, for example. Now press OK. Now go back to that very long code completion box. Now look at it's much shorter. Okay, it's maybe too short. Now I can't really read it anymore. So I can fine-tune this until I have this the way I want it to be. So maybe 15 might be okay. Even that is maybe not enough. So you can tweak that code completion box width, which is really convenient. So here, this is readable. So I can say, well, this is nice. What'd be nice as well is if we could make the height of this documentation box less high. So that would be a nice feature to add as well. And if you would like that to happen, you can go to Apache NetBeans on GitHub, and you can do a git clone, find this place, and provide a similar feature, not in terms of the width of this, but in terms of the height. So it would be very similar to this, in fact. So that's a really nice little feature as well. So now let's say I want to work with this particular project in the terminal window. Now, I showed how to open the terminal window. I go to Window, IDE, Tools, and then Terminal. But you can also go to Tools and Open in Terminal. So this will open this particular project. So it's exactly the right place. So there I'm a Jet TypeScript starter template. So here, if I select this and go to Tools and Open in Terminal, I am in exactly that folder. So now I can serve this up from here, or build it, or whatever. So now I'm in the terminal window for that particular project. So these are some really useful tips for making NetBeans really fast and smooth working when you're working with JavaScript, in particular when you're working with Jet. Thanks, and looking forward to feedback and comments and other tips and tricks in this area.